like to welcome Gregory Harms as the fourth guest of our Lewis Spotlight this semester. Gregory Harms specializes in U.S. foreign policy and the Middle East. He lectures and has a blog, and he's also traveled throughout the region and has been interviewed on BBC Radio, which is a major radio network in England. He also has 4 books published, with the fourth, No Politics, No Religion, coming out in about a week. You can purchase the book on gregoryharms.com or on Amazon. And then also at Lewis, Gregory is an adjunct professor in philosophy and ethics. So I'd like to welcome you to the show today, and thanks for taking a few minutes to be with us.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it.
So I just mentioned that you're an adjunct professor here at Lewis in philosophy and ethics. I'm just curious, how long have you been teaching here at the university?
Unbelievably, almost 10 years. That'd be 10 years in January. I don't know where the time has gone. But.
And then was there anything in particular that kind of drove you to Lewis or made you want to teach here?
I had just, at the time, it would have been 2003, January. I just wrapped up a little over a decade's worth of research and writing, and I desperately needed a job. And so I knew the professor who was the chair of the department here, and he said, just take one class and see if you like it, you know. Right. And I ended up, you know, it ended up being a really good fit. I feel like a duck in water in the classroom. The reason I knew the professor was I went here. I did my undergrad here. I did my master's here. My father went here back in the 60s. So you could say that Lewis and I go way back.
So you've definitely enjoyed your time here for the decades that you've been a part of the Lewis family.
Oh yeah. Even as a student, I mean, I got 30 years in. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
And I mentioned before too, you just had your fourth book published, No Politics, No Religion. It'll be available in about a week. I'm just kind of curious if you can tell us a little bit what it's about, a little preview for people.
The thrust of the book, I guess, is revealed in the title. No Politics, No Religion. This is a code of conduct that I think many of us are familiar with. We're discouraged in this culture from talking about politics and religion, and I've had God knows how many students tell me in the classroom that they at home are discouraged from talking about politics and religion, that they're kind of no-no topics. I've been talking about politics and religion with students in the classroom for, like I said, about a decade. And we've had no problems. No one has stormed out of the room, had a meltdown, lost their cool, none of these things. We handle these topics rationally and constructively. And I think that's the important thing to bear in mind, is that it's not the topics. The topics aren't the problem. The problem is how we commonly discuss these topics. So, you know, maybe your parents or your aunt at the holiday dinner table, they don't want you talking about these things because they don't want you getting into debates with like your uncles who bicker about these topics. So that's just us talking about these things badly. We should be talking about these things, 1, and 2, we should be talking about them in a more constructive, rational way.
So it's pretty much kind of how to handle these discussions about politics and religion is basically what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, I wanted to sort of, I mean, I was very much inspired by by the conversations I've had in the classroom. You know, I mean, my students had a tremendous impact on this book. I wanted the readers of the book to know that these topics are not inherently destabilizing, that we can talk about them, we can approach them in a rational way and have very fruitful conversations, which I think we desperately need if we're concerned about the state of our democracy.
And you've given us a lot of insight about what all your book entails and kind of the key points that you're trying to get across. But is there kind of one thing in particular that you kind of want people to take away from this book as they read it?
I would say I've talked, like I said, with students, hundreds, maybe 1,000 or more now, about in the classroom, I explain, what liberalism is, what conservatism is. We go through these technical terms. And then I follow that up with, you don't need to use them. You don't need to use these terms of art, which are political philosophy terms. You don't need to use them. Not every sentence that comes out of someone's mouth about politics has to get stamped liberal or conservative. You can just articulate your political likes and dislikes and preferences and whatnot. You can articulate those things in your own vocabulary. So I think if I had a hope for the book, it would be that people would find that confidence to articulate their political ideas and political preferences in their own vocabulary. They don't have to use the one that exists.
Right. Well, I'd like to congratulate you on the book, first off, and I'd like to also thank you for taking time to kind of explain how we should really talk about politics and religion with others. So I'd like to thank you once again for being here.
I appreciate it, Tony. Thank you.
And up next, we have your entertainment news. Stay tuned.